I actually heard one of my favorite poker pros talk about this, Alec Torelli. He has a channel, Conscious Poker by Alec Torelli. And what he talked about was how the solver is a great tool, but a lot of times it can get somebody, it can give them justification for making shitty plays. So let's say, for example, the solver tells me 10% of the time on a river with, 9-8, 7-9-5, like that board, that if somebody bets to me, I should jam if I have pocket deuces. Mm-hmm. If it tells me I should do that 10% of the time, right? Well, if I do that the 10% of the time and the guy has the nuts, whatever the nuts is on that board, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at this hand and analyze it and be like, well, the solver says that I should do it 10% of the time. That's the 10% that I decided to do it. And in reality, I probably shouldn't have done that, right? All right, thank you for tuning in for this week's podcast. This is Jackson Bourbon, and I am Nick Addesso, the host, and I have with me Raf Mendoza. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me.
We are starting here with some alcohol. As the name says, it's Jackson Bourbon, so I have myself an old-fashioned. What do you have here?
I am a bitch, so I didn't decide to go with the bourbon. I decided to go with the little Moscow Mule.
It's all right.
Shout out, Bad Bunny.
It's all right. Every now and then you have to go against the grain. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We've known each other for about 5 years now. I know a lot about you, but everybody else doesn't. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, well.
That's the worst interview question ever. You go into an interview. All right, so Raf,
tell me about yourself.
I've never met you before, but tell me everything about your life.
All right, well. Because I've known Nick for a while now, a few years now. I'm petrified of interviews. I'm petrified of podcasts, but he's decided to drag me into this either way.
You are episode number 1.
Career-wise, I'm in IT. Started my journey not that long ago. It was on and off, but decided to stick with it now. I enjoy video games. I enjoy playing poker every now and then. Mm-hmm. As Nick can attest, he takes my money every single time.
That's not true.
So...
That's not true. What got you into IT?
So I would actually contemplate what I wanted to do when I was younger, and ultimately there was a quote that I was told. You kind of want to. Well, not a quote because I'm gonna paraphrase, but
you're gonna give a quote without giving the name.
Yeah. So what happened was I had this mentor, this life mentor, if you will.
Okay.
And I kind of asked him this question of, what do I want to do in life?
Yeah.
I don't know. He essentially answered it with, just think about what you've done with, in your entire life. What have you spent the most time doing?
Sure.
And what do you enjoy doing? And ultimately, computers was that it, right? I grew up with computers. I grew up playing with them, tinkering with them. I enjoy them. Mm-hmm. I enjoy just being around them. So that's essentially why I ended up going down that route, right?
Was there anybody like in the house or in your life that was, interested in computers or kind of opened up that, or did you find it on your own? Or
not necessarily. I would say my dad.
Yeah.
My dad kind of did break that door a little bit open because he was, I guess, the first one that had a computer. Okay. A laptop. It was.
I mean, we grew up in strange times because we were right when that boom kind of happened. Yeah. So I get what you mean.
Yeah. So I kind of just started tinkering with it. I was just obsessed with it. I was obsessed with games. So obviously, I originally wanted to be a programmer, right? So wanted to be a programmer. Went down that path. Went to CSN, which is a local college here. I ended up doing more classes that didn't pertain to computers, and that's kind of what ultimately had me drop out of CSN. And then
interesting.
My mom was actually the one that pushed me to keep going to pursue formal education. And
that was not computer related, or?
So she ultimately set this kind of rule after I graduated that I either go to school or I leave the house, right? So I didn't have a career, didn't have a job, didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I kind of just chose the latter.
Sure.
So she kind of gave me this ultimatum. Okay, you can leave, but you still have to do some type of education. And I did some digging around. I found this school. I'm not gonna give them any promotion because you got paid Nick Addesso for that. But
imagine I'm getting lit up with money from like these colleges, man.
But went to this trade school, if you will. It's accredited, but they essentially took you down the route of becoming an IT professional first and foremost, before you kind of earn those Nevada history, those courses that you have to take to get the degree.
Quick PSA, we do live in an environment where there are cats. There's no way around it. There is an opportunity where we might be visited by one of them in the very near future. That's just part of the show. Maybe it's Jack's Bourbon and cats. I don't know. But anyways, continue.
So I decided to go down there. I was intrigued with the first part, which is essentially the beginner aspect to IT, which is hardware.
Okay.
That's kind of the part that I was most intrigued with. I loved the thought of building my own computer, and at this point I hadn't built my own computer. So I was constantly excited by it, if you will. And then the course does teach you I guess let me give some background.
Yeah.
So an IT certifications usually hold more weight than a degree.
Really?
So yeah. So
in like a degree like computer science, or like what kind of degree would it hold more weight than?
So I think IT is one of those trades where I don't even know if it would be really called a trade, but it's one of those fields where it's more of what you know, and what you can prove that you can do versus that piece of paper that solidifies it, right?
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So if you
so it's very performance based. Like they want you to like really know your shit versus like, because I feel like personally I didn't go to college, and I think like one thing that I learned just working in the professional atmosphere is that like, not to take anything against college or like traditional degrees, but sometimes you get people that have your traditional degree and all of a sudden it kind of gives them this confidence or cockiness that like they just immediately know what they're doing in the professional atmosphere, and then versus somebody that's been on the job for few years or even 10 years, like sometimes they think that they know more, but in reality it's not really there. So it sounds like your industry really likes to have the actual on job, like they hold weight to the I guess experience, right? Like you've worked with computers, you understand computers, I can show you that I can do computers, but not because I just attended a couple of online classes that tell me that I know computers and I have this piece of paper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like marketing, like you market a multi-million-dollar company versus I just, fake did a marketing,
you memorize some questions.
Yeah, I memorized some questions and now I know marketing more than somebody that marketed for like, Caesars or something like.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's kind of like essentially like that, right?
That makes sense.
So in IT, essentially, it goes, the main certifications are CompTIA A+, Net+, and from there you can usually go security, cloud, Linux, things of that nature. So how the course kind of took you was through that progression, and A+, which is essentially the hardware, the basic aspect of IT. That's kind of what I did first. Got that one, and then I did networking plus next. And then eventually I kind of fell out of it. I didn't really know if that's what I wanted to go down, but I still had to go because, the ultimatum of getting kicked out or going to school.
Sure.
So I would essentially just go to school for like the bare minimum. But then I ended up dropping out. or not dropping out. I finished it, got my degree in computer information, but I didn't finish the certifications, all of them, which could have helped me tremendously. But at the same time, I was young, I was stupid, and life kind of keeps going on.
Sure.
So I didn't finish them. Now obviously I regret it, but I didn't finish them. I didn't really know what to do with it. I tried to go down the IT path, like try to look for an IT job, but ultimately I just decided to kind of drop that career and decided to look for something different. And then COVID kind of happened. So
yeah, which threw everybody for a loop, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I kind of graduated during COVID. I think I graduated a little bit before COVID. So then COVID happened. That kind of messed everything up.
How did COVID throw you for a loop, like with your plans?
So I threw it off because I felt like, well, one, at the time I didn't want to do IT, and then I didn't think that there were really any jobs because I felt like it hit everything in a sort of, in a bigger world aspect. So obviously now looking back at it, there still is a lot of IT demand.
Sure.
But I just kind of
because arguably it kind of grew, right?
Yeah, exactly, right.
Like I know, like during the pandemic, I was hearing all kinds of stuff like, people were moving from California to do remote jobs from here and buying houses and real estate in Las Vegas, all just to work from their tech companies in like San Francisco, right? Yeah. Like they were growing. Like it seemed like in like 2021, like the IT industry and like remote IT specifically just fucking boomed, man.
Well, yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, right? But at the time I was like 20, 21, somewhere around that. So you're obviously just kind of naive to everything. So I just felt like I ultimately didn't have trust in myself. I think that was the biggest thing. But yeah, so I ended up getting just odd jobs, if you will. I inevitably ended up at Amazon. I was working at Amazon for 2 years.
I remember that.
And then I decided to go back, get my certifications, because you have to recertify every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Come to you. Because technology moves so fast.
Yeah.
So you constantly have to stay on top of it, right?
If they make us get new iPhones every few years, I can only imagine the rest of the stuff, right?
Exactly. So you have to recertify every 3 years. So I went back. It had been over 3 years, well over 3 years.
Okay.
By the time I made the decision to go try and recertify for just my Net Plus.
Sure.
Well, actually, I went to school because Amazon has a program where they'll pay up to $2,000 worth of your tuition.
Oh, that's awesome.
School. So I decided to take advantage of it. Went to school for my A+, to recertify for my A+ and my Net Plus.
Okay.
The CSN has this I wouldn't say promotion, but this campaign, if you will, where if you take a test, right, a test that essentially mimics what the certification test is like, and if you get I don't remember if it was 80 or 90, but if you get a certain percentage on it, they'll give you not only an A, but they'll pay for your certification.
That's incredible.
So that was a free $300. I'm pretty sure. So the A+ comes in 2 tests. Net Plus comes in 1, but the Net Plus is worth more. It's more expensive.
Sure.
So I decided to take that one for free. So I ended up taking my Net Plus, got it, started looking for a job, and that's how I ended up kind of in the company that I'm at right now.
Okay.
Which has allowed me to grow exponentially.
That's awesome.
But that's essentially how I got to IT. It's a long story.
That's your IT journey. No, don't be sorry, man. That's cool. It definitely, like, the one thing just listening to you talk about it is that you really did have, like, you didn't have a direct path to where you're at, but you had just that. Sometimes, like, you bob and you weave and you move throughout this path, but then eventually you end up at the same location. And I think it's kind of naive to think that we're gonna end up on this just straight shot path.
Yeah.
Like, how often does that happen? Like, you're always gonna face some type of adversity. You're always gonna have, like, you know, something that, you know, for lack of a better word, just throws you for a fucking loop.
Exactly.
And then you gotta, you know, maneuver. And you maneuvered, and now you're in IT, right?
Yeah. So if anything is to take from it, I think it's that things just happen in life, whether it be planned or not, and you kind of just have to keep moving and just keep going. You're not as much as you want to. When I was at a young age, like 21, I wanted to have all those.
You were gonna say when I was a youth? Is that
when
what
I was a youth? Yeah. At this point, I'm 25, 30 creeping around. But
oh man.
It's just when you're young, you think you just really truly think that you got all the answers, and people tell you that you don't, but you truly you believe like they're different or something.
You think you have your shit figured out now.
Yeah, and then ultimately life comes around and just teaches you that life is the same really for everybody. Even if you feel like you're going through something alone and that nobody else can relate to it.
Yeah.
There's somebody out there that has gone through the same thing and has overcome it, right?
And a lot of times, I mean, with that, I don't know if life is this simple to say this, but I think a lot of times you look at people, right, and there's always, like, it doesn't matter how easy your life is or how hard it is, like, somewhere people face adversity, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when you see people that are successful in whatever it is, like, a lot of times it's how they deal with that adversity, because like, you can take, I don't care who we're talking about, the most successful guy, like, let's take, you worked at Amazon, let's take Jeff Bezos. Do you think he's ever faced adversity in his life? Absolutely. Honestly, he probably faces adversity every day that we just don't fucking know about. And then you take, like, the high school kid that's, like, trying to fucking, earn a scholarship for academics or athletics, whatever. They're facing adversity too. So, like, you take the bottom and the top, right? And there's just adversity there. So I think where you find success is how you deal with that adversity.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. I think it's just kind of what we choose to deal with is ultimately the question, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be managing, whether it be in the IT field, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in trade shows, whatever it is, there's always going to be problems. And I think the as soon as you try to turn that on its head and look for problems to solve, that's what ultimately is going to make you successful.
Yeah, and I have to ask you for random IT questions all the time, but it just seems, this has been the case in the trend probably for like the last 20 years at least, but it just seems like the world is going heavily towards IT related jobs, and just everything is tech. Like what would you say to people that are either gung-ho, like, yeah, I'm all for this tech, I'm all for this, like, AI type stuff, and then what would you say to people that are kind of anti, like, just as an example, let's take, like, our boomer friends, or people that are, like, just, maybe not tech savvy or not interested in learning the tech. Like, what would you say to those people?
I think,
or the people that are apprehensive, let's just say.
So I think AI is obviously,
it's different. It's not fair to compare. Like,
let's start with AI, right?
Sure.
AI is something that has actually been around for a while, right?
Sure.
AI has been something that's been developed for a long time.
I
don't think it'll...
Probably the last 30 or 40 years.
Years.
They've been making movies about fucking robots for, like, since the 80s.
One of my favorite movies is actually called War Games, where...
Yeah. You just watched that. Is that your new favorite movie?
It's now my new favorite movie.
I growing up with my dad, if you're watching this, my dad made me watch every movie from the 70s, even some 60s, which are rough to get through. 70s, 80s, all those movies. Some of them are painful to watch. Some of them are absolute masterpieces. But one of them that was my favorite was War Games, just because it's a movie. You can go into what you think about it, but watching it, you know, I think I first watched it maybe when I was like 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then like I watched it maybe again like a couple years ago, and it really, like, no matter how old that movie is, it really feels like it's still something that can be a part of it. And so for those of you that haven't seen War Games, the movie is essentially about a kid that's really good with computers that is able to hack in and like essentially, you know, start a nuclear war. Like
simulate,
but it's so real that like even the bombs could have been launched. Like
because I mean, it's a really good movie. I recommend people to watch it, and it kind of shows you how that was an aspect of AI. Rather you think it's like obviously it's just a movie portrayed, but it was, you know, something that had been worked on for a while, right? And I guess to touch on the original question, AI is more of a tool than anything, right? The jobs that are going to get replaced by AI isn't going to be AI itself. It's going to be people that embrace the AI and learn how to use the AI in a way that it benefits them and whoever's employing them, right?
Sorry to cut you off, but so off of what you're saying, like, so I think a lot of people's worries, without getting too political, but like I think a lot of people's worries is that, okay, like, is my job safe, you know, 10 years from now because like a robot might be able to do my job? Like, what would you like? So you're saying that basically like there's going to be like a person that has to manage that robot, or?
I mean, yeah, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's kind of like any other revolutionary product, right? Like with machinery, right? There was a point where in factories, everybody was doing every little
by hand, yeah.
Human was involved in every single aspect.
Sure.
And then little by little, it became obsolete, and things became just evolved.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like the assembly line, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot less people, but there's still people that do that, right?
Sure.
There might be computers, and it's just kind of learning how to evolve. I think AI is inevitable to be involved in our everyday lives. Mm-hmm. It's just more of how people are going to overcome. I think the human nature is to survive. So there will always be a group of people that overcome that and figure out how to work around their environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with what you're saying, kind of like where my mind goes with this is that we've evolved how things are processed, right? Like from what you said, people were doing things by hand, then you had the assembly line, and then like now we're going to go into this AI world where, you know, people's jobs are potentially at risk. But I think like where there's always been an advancement, there's always been more jobs created to handle that advancement. Mm-hmm. And so I think like, you know, I've talked to obviously, you know, friends and people that are interested in having the conversation, but I think like the idea that AI is just going to take away all the jobs is just not there, because, you know, like the best one is like grocery stores, right? Mm-hmm. So you go into, let's just say, like, just because they're everywhere, but Walmart, right? You go into Walmart and they have those self-checkouts everywhere, mm-hmm. right? But yeah, they took away some jobs, but then like, what about all the IT people that have to help with those, with the software, with the machines themselves, and then you got to take account for the people that maintenance those. And so what jobs weren't there before, like, you know, in 1990 there was no job to maintenance a fucking self-checkout machine, mm-hmm. right? But now all of a sudden that's probably a fucking job, right? Like, yeah. So it where it takes away jobs, it sounds like it creates some jobs. I think like there might be some jobs that you see go away. Like, I mean, in, you know, what, we're in 2023 or 2023? Yeah, we're in 2023. No, but we're in 2023, right? And so it's like, you know, 30 years ago, like, did we think that we were going to have certain things? No. But now that we have it, it didn't necessarily take away the need for it, right? But we're in 2023, 2060, let's just say. Do you think we're going to have, like, cashiers? Probably not. I mean, like, if you go to the grocery store, like, let's say you go to, you know, your local Smith's or Fry's or whatever you have, like, you'll have maybe 2 or 3 actual cashiers, like human cashiers, and then you'll have all the self-checkouts. Like, it might be a thing in the next 20 or 30 years where there's not an actual cashier. But then for those, there might be, added maintenance people or added software techs that are actually working on those. So I think what, bottom line is, I think the career that you chose to go into, IT, I think it's always going to be there because they're always going to need smart minds that are working on this shit. I mean, there's always going to be a need for it.
Yeah. I mean, even to a certain degree, like, the IT field isn't even safe, right? Because certain aspects of AI can help you, I guess, eliminate some of those roles.
Like troubleshooting and stuff, yeah.
Like programming, right? You can run into ChatGPT and tell it to.
What is ChatGPT for everybody? Because I will be honest with you, I have heard this term before, but probably in the last week or so I actually learned what it is. But for the folks that don't understand,
I mean, ChatGPT is essentially that's a loaded question. So ChatGPT is essentially an AI that can answer. That's essentially just a very, very, very sophisticated, publicly released AI bot.
Right, you can ask it anything, right?
It's essentially Google just in a directly.
But it's solution, right? Like, it's solution based. Like, if you have a problem, it'll give you a solution. Because if you go on Google and you ask a question, like,
you a bunch of links to solutions.
Right, but it's not going to give you, like, you say 2 + 2, like, it's not necessarily going to give you that. But if you go into the ChatGPT, like, it's going to give you what the answer
Obviously,
is.
that's a little bit more
complex. But that's more basic. But I'm just saying, like, hey, how the fuck do I turn off this light that's keeps on coming up? Like, it's going to give you a solution,
so it's
right?
able to literally, you kind of see iRobot and all these things. All these, you're scared that you're going to get taken over by AIs that can just kind of log into the internet, or download all this information and just learn it like that, right? Like, learn how to play the violin.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that, where it searches a bunch of links, it looks at all the answers and the response to it, and it kind of comes up with its own solution to give you, right?
That's cool.
And it still has a lot of
this segues me into a totally different topic.
But so it ultimately leads you down to this ultimate robot that you can go to and ask any question, right? I apologize for cutting.
No, dude, no. No, you're. This whole AI conversation gave me a totally different route because where my mind goes, I mean, obviously where we have poker chips in front of us is in poker, right? So, I mean, dating back, I mean, obviously, online poker has had its highs and its lows, obviously. I mean, online poker was legal and then it wasn't legal and then now it's kind of legal in certain states, and then, there were cheating allegations back in, like, before we started playing poker, like the 2010s-ish, that were kind of, really rough. I mean, it was rough for them to overcome. It took a lot of probably, smart IT people to get involved to kind of curb that. But what ended up coming of it is, a lot of people in that time, like, my dad, I'm planning on having on here because my dad was kind of around and he was a big poker player during the poker boom, like the moneymaker boom and all that. And he was cheated online by a bot, right? And he's told me this story many times, and I'll have him tell the story himself. But essentially, it was a bot that was playing, like, with a computer system, right?
Like game theory output.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of where I was going with it, is that, so with this, there was a discovery found that these bots were being used, right? And they were able to figure out that these bots were playing better than a human could play. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of constituted, okay, like, if you and I were robots, both of us, like, how would we play against each other? And thus kind of sparked the GTO, or the game theory optimal, right? Mm-hmm. So where does IT or AI play into, like, the poker game, where now all of a sudden, you know, what seems like a crazy game, like you and I can have any 2 cards and we can do any random crazy things in a hand, but now all of a sudden they're saying that the game is solved, right? And before, I believe the game is solved, but I think there's a lot of caveats to that. So yes, poker, I think, take it, Nick Addesso Poker is telling you guys, I think poker is solved. I think specifically No Limit Hold'em is solved. I think Limit Hold'em's been solved for a long time, but No Limit Hold'em is solved. But if it's 2 robots, like imagine Raf and I are robots and we're playing against each other, like in theory, neither one of us would have an edge, right? Where does that come in, do you think? And also before you say that too, like what do you know about GTO? And
game theory.
I'm gonna indulge because I'm running low over here.
I'll go ahead and indulge with you.
All right.
Let's see.
Cheers. So we have the Winchester Kentucky Rye whiskey. So
The only Winchester I know is
bullets. Yeah.
No,
That's good. No, yeah. Winchester White Box, baby.
I can't speak.
That's all right.
Into this Moscow.
But yeah.
So
what are your thoughts on that?
Let's start off with what I know of GTO, right?
Okay.
Game theory optimal is essentially, like you said, a robot. How a robot thinks, analytically.
Do you take in the aromatics of that? Do you smell it?
No,
like pouring it?
I have allergies to cats, so currently I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe.
We had to drug him up before this, but with Benadryl, so that he could be able to take care of this. Yeah.
But here's my take, and I think it goes back into that conversation that we were having off camera of that scandal, which we may or may not touch. The thing with GTO is it works robot wise.
Sure.
Robots think like robots. Mm-hmm. The problem is me and you are not robots.
No.
Me and you are humans.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to think we're only analytical, emotionless creatures, we're just the opposite.
Right.
And as much as we want to think analytically, we are much more than that. You can think percentage-wise, you can think this, and this, but there's a lot more to human than just that. There's a lot, whenever a human touches something, it's significantly complex.
Right.
The brain is just too complex to truly understand, and humans are just a lot more complex, and they just make everything difficult.
I agree.
If a GTO robot played another GTO robot, like Daniel Negreanu said, at the end of the day, it's going to be 50-50. Because GTO is meant to teach you how to be...
Yeah, like it takes away the edge, right?
Exactly.
Continue what you're saying.
And it kind of... I want to touch base on what we had, that conversation that we had downstairs where, you know...
Well, go over the... We were at odds earlier. There was some shouting. We were not happy with
passionate.
Each other. Yeah, we were passionate. Well, here, just you brought it up, so you go over. Let's explain the scenario, for everybody, and we'll talk about it.
So from my perspective, my bias. There was I don't know what her name was.
Robbie Liu, I believe.
Robbie somebody. Yep. So this lady was playing against who?
Garrett Adelstein.
Garrett somebody. And this was the first time I had seen that incident. And he kind of brought it to my attention. He showed me the video, what happened, and he told me what conspired after. Ultimately, you come down to guilty or not guilty. I came to the latter. I'm very adamant on that, due to the fact that humans are humans, and humans, as much as you want, I think it goes back down to that GTO, right?
Yeah. And
when you learn about GTO and you try to think GTO, it puts you in this mindset that forgets the human aspect of it. And humans are faulty. Humans are error-based. Whether you think it was an error or not, there's other things to it. How you stand, how you breathe, how your eyes dilate. There's a lot more to you than a robot, right? GTO is just simply numbers. And at the end of the day, we're more than numbers. And that's kind of what ultimately our conflict was coming to the conclusion on
I mean, we ultimately agreed, I would think. Like,
he's not.
I think
he's
you're
not
a little
willing to make
bit.
a definitive statement.
I think you're a little bit more on the extreme side than I am, but I think.
Well,
I think we ultimately agreed. So basically, the scenario was. I mean, this is almost a year old, so I'm sure people know about it. Playing a Hustler live stream, and it had Robbie Liu, who is the person that we're talking about, Garrett Adelstein, which is the other person in the hand, and it had, Phil Ivey, it had Andy Stacks, it had a couple other people, but that's who was on the Hustler live stream. And the stakes were, I believe, 100, 200, 400.
A lot of fucking money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. I mean, these people had a 100K minimum in front of them, right? I mean, there was some people that had 400 or 500K in front of them. I think Adelstein had like 800K in front of them. So a lot of fucking money, right? Money that most of us aren't playing with. It's just kind of ridiculous money, right? The Adelstein, it folded to him in the small blind. He raised to $3,000. The big blind folded, and the straddle, which was the $400 straddle, was Robbie Liu, and she called the $3,000 with Jack 4 offsuit, the Jack of clubs, and the 4 of hearts. The flop came 10-10-9 with 2 clubs and 1 heart, and there was some betting. 2,500, I believe. Garrett bet. Robbie called. The turn was a 3 of hearts. Garrett bet $10,000 into a pot of almost $12,000, I believe. And Robbie min raised to $20,000, and Garrett just shipped it all in. And I think she had like 110,000 or 100,000 behind, something like that. And she ultimately pondered. She didn't know what to do, and she made the call with Jack high. Jack 4 high, and the run of it was they decided to run it twice, and Garrett missed the straight and the flush draw and any pair, and she ended up scooping the $300,000 pot or so.
I think it was like a 4 because she doubled up.
It was a 4. Yeah. It was a huge pot that she scooped with Jack high, and him missing both rounds. And so that sparked the debate on, potentially was there any, shady dealings? Like, was there any cheating involved? I'm not saying 100% one way or another, but it did spark the debate, and that's kind of what we talked about off camera. And that kind of brought in the AI aspect of it. GTO to me, kind of getting back to like the IT side of it, GTO is an interesting thing because it's a robot versus robot, manipulation. But here's where the problem with GTO is it's like anything else. It's how you use it, right? So I consider myself very well studied in GTO. And I believe that in our year, there is no way that you can be a successful poker player without it. I think, you might be able to beat like very low stakes without it. But I don't think that you can win long term without it. But it's all in how you apply it. I'll give you some examples, right? So you put into a solver, which is what GTO is used, right? So you have a solver and you input data and it outputs data. That's basically how it works. Have you ever used a solver?
I've used the solver that we used on our phone, but nothing more sophisticated.
So the solver, that one is more just pure calculation odds. This one is more so telling you like if this robot was playing the hand, exactly what it would do. Mm-hmm. But the problem with the solver, if anyone's ever used one before, is it gives you percentages. And so that's when I talk about like frequencies, right? So let me just give you a hypothetical example. You and I are playing a pot and I have ace king. I raise pre-flop, you call, or let's say, yeah, you call, right? The flop comes Jack, deuce, 5, 2 clubs, and 1 heart. And let's say I have like the ace of clubs or something like that, right? So I don't have anything. I have, nut, no pair, right? So now we're in a situation where, let's say you check it to me, right? Now we're in a situation where, let's just say the solver tells you that 50% of the time you should bet and 50% of the time you should check here, right? That's just what the solver is telling you should do in frequencies, right? Where the problem with playing GTO and where the solver creates issues is that, what if against this specific opponent I should be doing something more than what the frequencies are outputting? So for example, let's say you're a tight, very passive player. You're not, but let's just say that you are. Well, maybe in that spot I should bet fucking 100% of the time, right? I should always bet there. Well, the solver isn't going to tell you to do that. So then it might be a thing where I check here and I end up losing the pot because the solver's telling me not to do that. But let me give you another example. I've played a lot of hands with you, so I kind of have a gauge on where I'm at or what I should be doing in a hand, that type of thing, because we've played enough. Likewise for you, you have an idea of how I play, whatever. Well, let's say that you and I sit together at a table randomly at a casino. We've never fucking met each other. We've never played with each other. Or you and I sit at an online table together. I don't know anything about you. Well, is it better for me to go GTO then? Probably, because I don't have any information on you. So then maybe until I have information on you, to use exploits, because there's really 2 ways of playing poker, right? There's exploitative and there's GTO. And anybody that tells you that they should only play GTO or only play exploitative, they're going to lose. But the people that tell you that they are going to play a combination of both is where you're going to see people that win. Now, if I were saying my approach, right? I probably lean more 60-40%, 60 being the GTO side versus 40. But I lean heavily towards the exploitative side because, I'll give you an example. There's this guy that we play with often and we're friends with. His name is Michael Miano, and I'm sure I'll have him on the show. Mikey is an interesting player, and we're playing with him tonight. He has, I'm not going to give anything away as far as what I would do, but there are scenarios where, let's just say that the solver tells me that I should just call in a spot where he's betting. But in reality, I know him as a player, and I know that let's just be real. I think Mikey's a fucking fish, right? But Mikey might bet in this spot way too often, and I also think he's overcalling in this spot. So if I know that, then if I have let's just say top pair, top kicker, then I should be raising here. But the solver may not tell me to do that. Now, on the contrary, the other thing, I actually heard one of my favorite poker pros talk about this, Alec Torelli. He has a channel, Conscious Poker by Alec Torelli. And what he talked about was how the solver is a great tool, but a lot of times it can get somebody, it can give them justification for making shitty plays. So let's say, for example, the solver tells me 10% of the time on a river with 9-8, 7, 9-5, that board, that if somebody bets to me, I should jam if I have pocket deuces. If it tells me I should do that 10% of the time, right? Well, if I do that the 10% of the time and the guy has the nuts, whatever the nuts is on that board, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at this hand and analyze it and be like, well, the solver says that I should do it 10% of the time. That's the 10% that I decided to do it. And in reality, I probably shouldn't have done that, right? So I think it creates an interesting spot when you're analyzing results, right? It tells you, if there's this small frequency that you're supposed to do something, it just justifies poor play, because this is the scenario where I'm going to make that crazy play, right? In reality, I just think that that's not true. Now, the plays where it's 30, 40, 50% of the time that you should be doing something, that's a little different. But, if you plug in a solver, sometimes it'll give you 1%. Like 1% of the time you should do this. So if I go on national television playing a poker game, like I go on Poker After Dark and I do some outlandish stuff, and I go and plug it into a solver and it says, yeah, 1% of the time you should do that, well then I'm going to go on TV and be like, yeah, that was the 1%. So that, you know, and it's just, it gives you a false reality, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with what you said. I think, but the biggest aspect, I think, I'm a big psychology nut, and I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to. Whether you look at the numbers or not, a person is going to give you more about what the cards hold than any number that's generated through GTO is going to give you, right?
Sure.
So I think if you're able to psychologically understand somebody when they're lying, when they're telling the truth, when they're freaking out, when they're calm, when they're whatever state they're in, and you're able to differentiate that whenever they're in a different state, that's what ultimately gives you the edge. Not
Sure.
the numbers, when you can read somebody.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy that he's no longer with us, but he's in the poker community, or he was. Barry, I have his book right over there, but I'll drop
Barry
it in there.
Sumstein?
Barry something Steen. Yeah, he
died?
Not who you're thinking of, not Barry Greenstein.
Oh.
You know, here I have his book right here. I'm gonna look real quick.
Let's get the book so we can clarify before we think.
It's yeah, that's right. I don't know how I forgot this, but Barry Tannenbaum. So this book is called Advanced Limit Hold'em Strategy. For all you guys who don't know what limit hold'em is, we'll talk about that. But he talks about something interesting in his book that I've read this book like 4 times, and you know, whether it's right or wrong, it's kind of judgmental, but I mean, it is what it is. This book was written like 20 years ago, but he talks about like viewing people and what their tendencies are, right? So, for example, you have somebody that sits at your table and they have a Rolex on. I mean, what does that tell you about the player, right? They have money.
Yeah.
Like they might be over bluffing.
Fairly loose.
Like they might be fairly loose. They might be over bluffing. Maybe the chips don't matter as much to them.
Mm-hmm.
You see a guy that shows up to the table that is wearing, you know, a $10 watch or no watch at all. That has, you know, on the contrary, the same guy that's wearing the Rolex that has like expensive diamond earrings on or expensive chain, whatever. Like that tells you like, okay, this guy has some money, like maybe this money he's playing with doesn't mean as much to him. Mm-hmm. But then you got some guy that sits at the table, whether it's right or wrong. Again, like I'm not, you know, I don't know, like, you know, in the grand scheme, like whether this kind of prejudice or judgmental like look on things is right. But when it comes to the poker table, you see somebody that sits down and they're wearing just like a normal like outfit. They've got like fucking no watch
first
on.
Impressions.
Yeah, first impressions, right? Like you might think, okay, like this person, you know, their chips matter more to them, so I can bluff them, right?
Off of the information.
Right, off of the information that you have. Now, like, right, but then kind of going back to the point that we were originally talking about, like you see a solver, like a solver can't account for that, right? Like the robot is not going to analyze in that way.
It can't account to
the human aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and there's a big human aspect, right? Like
because we're all human at this table.
Right, like, you know, I'll give you another example. Like I sat at a table. I'm not joking. I sat at a limit hold'em table. This was maybe 2 months ago. I sat at a limit hold'em table. I had a older Asian lady that raised under the gun. And I had, now mind you, limit hold'em, you have your bet, the raise is a min raise. And then I had a younger guy, somebody that I'm close friends with, he 3 bets, which let's say you're playing 50-100. The raise would be to 200, the 3 bet would be to 300, right? So that's what the 3 bet was. I was sitting there with ace queen offsuit in the small blind. Now, no limit hold'em. If I see a 3 bet in front of me, depending on what, like if it's suited, what my frequencies are, like, you know, GTO. I might 4-bet with ace queen. I might call the 3-bet, but I'm probably not gonna fold. I will tell you, I folded. I folded ace queen to a 3-bet. Literally, it's limit hold'em. Okay? I folded. I kind of felt a little bit sick about it because it's kind of strange. Like, ace queen is very strong. Like, you know, whatever. But come to find out, the older Asian lady that raised first, she had king queen. So I had her dominated. But the younger guy that raised, he had aces. So it's like I made the good fold, right? But if you look at a solver would never tell you to do that. Like, a solver would tell you 100% you're 4-betting here or you're calling the 3-bet, but you're basically never folding, right? But in this instance, I decided based off of the information that I had, like, you know, if I have an older person, you know, somebody that's like more old school that thinks about the game, like, I understand that, like, me, you know, the solver is going to tell you, oh, you should 4-bet with ace 5 suited, you know, X amount of times. But against this person that's going to, like, have aces a lot of the time, or ace king, ace queen have me dominated, like, I'm probably not going to even call. Like, I'm just going to fold, right? But the solver tells you that you should 4-bet a certain frequency. So, like, I'll give you another example. And this is kind of going against, like, my whole mindset on it. But it kind of, like, these are things that you think about, right? So the solver might tell you that in a certain spot, you know, let's say you raise and you get 3-bet and you have ace 5 suited, right? The solver might tell you that 25% of the time with ace 5 suited that you should 4-bet, right? Well, against a certain opponent, that might be a 0%. Like, or against some opponents, it might be 100% because I know this guy way over folds, so I'm almost always going to 3-bet here or 4-bet here. So that's the biggest issue. And so I mean, there's some scenarios with the solver where it's like cut and dry, like, you know, against any opponent, this is a good way to play the hand. But then there's some kind of gray areas, like what we're talking about, like the ace deuce through 5 suited, like how you play that pre-flop. Like, it's just not that simple, you know?
And I kind of want to touch back onto that scenario that we're originally talking about, right?
Yeah,
where
the Robbie loop. Yep.
And I think let's just be clear here. Nick is the greatest poker player that we have in our friend group, right? Greatest one by far, right? I started playing with him. I started taking advantage of him originally when he first started taking
That's
poker.
very true.
When he originally started taking poker. And then he kind of took it to the next level, and I just couldn't keep up. But he's currently the most sound player that we have around us.
I appreciate that.
Around us. And I guess kind of going back to that situation that you showed me with the video of Ruby or whatever her name is.
Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie and
Garrett Adelstein.
Garrett. I think that's kind of the problem, right? When everybody thinks the same way, they're going to think of what would this person do thinking optimally, right? With taking that into consideration, with taking GTO into consideration, person's consideration. That's ultimately why I think, now granted, I'm not on Nick's level at all, but just seeing the pure action and understanding or trying to understand why it would happen, it completely makes sense to me.
Sure.
Because in order to beat, it's kind of like, imagine you're on this tidal wave, right? And it's going in one direction. The only way you can beat it is by going the complete opposite direction. And I think, as you said, you can, once you play with somebody so often, you can tell what their tendencies are. And no matter how much you think you disguise it, there's ultimately tells that to you may not be aware of, but to them, they might be like fucking green light. Or maybe not that clear.
No, you know, like, when you look at the hand, right, I mean, there's some sort of human element to it where, I mean, the turn, you know, it's a 9, 10, 10, 2 club board, and then the turn is a 3 of hearts, right? And there's some element where, you know, Garrett bets, you know, Robbie raises, and then Garrett just jams all in. Like, there's a human element that like, you know, Robbie can look at this person and just feel like they're weak, right? Like, I mean, there's been a lot of times, I mean, I've fucking called people with, like, queen jack high and, like, king high and, like, all kinds of, like, scandalous shit, and I was right. And it could, I mean, in defense to her, like, it could look sketchy, like, okay, like, how did you call me with queen high here? Like, you know, that's ridiculous. But then it's just like,
in your house you have to have some fucking camera around.
Yeah, right? Like, but but also, like, I think what was so polarized about this hand was the fact that, you know, she had a jack and a 4, right? Like, you know, when I analyzed the hand, you know, and just to kind of foreshadow, like, I don't know for a fact what happened, and I don't think that any of us ever will. But when you analyze the hand from start to finish, right, like, the pre-flop action, everybody folds, and Garrett raises to $3,000, and she's sitting in the straddle, like, who would call with Jack 4 offsuit? One, but like, this is just one aspect, right? So, like, first off, most people, including myself, would probably fold Jack 4 offsuit there, right? Like, it's not a
99% of the people would fold.
Right.
I would have.
Right. No, so like, where your argument comes in is, like, the human aspect, and I agree with that. But when you factor it in, it becomes tough because, like you just said, 99.9% of people would understand, or that any poker, like, you know, regular player would understand that this is not a profitable hand, right? So you would fold, right? Would you fold? Would you have folded Jack 4 there? I'm just asking.
I personally would have folded.
Okay, so would I. So, okay, but now that we have that out of the hand, so then let's say that she's that 0.1% that calls there, right?
She was.
Right. So then the flop comes, you know, 9, 10, 10, 2 clubs, right? You whiff. Like, you don't have anything, you don't have a pair. I mean, you have backdoor draws because you have the jack of clubs, like, you have that going for you. But now you whiff, right? And so now Garrett's betting, and he bets 2,500 into, like, you know, 7,500 or something, right? Or he bet, like, 2,500, right? But either way, he bets 2,500, and I think there's, like, 7,000. Okay, so he bets that, and now, I'll be honest with you, I would call if I were her. The reason being, you have the jack of clubs, there's 9, 9, 10 with 2 clubs out there. You have backdoors. Like, if another club comes, now you can kind of stay in the hand, you can do some freaky things. Well, if an 8 comes, or if a queen comes, now you're open-ended. Like, you have all kinds of good cards that could come holding the jack of clubs, right?
Well, hold on. We're talking about the river card, right?
No, we're talking about, we're on the flop. So we're on the flop, right? So the flop comes 9, 9, 10 with 2 clubs. Well, so when he bets $2,500 into, I think it was like 6,800 or something like that. You guys could fact check me, but he bet 2,500 into, it was about a third pot, if I remember correctly. I mean, if I'm in her spot, I'm calling too. Now that I have this hand, so now that I've called, right? I shouldn't have called, but I'm in here. I have this board. This board is actually not that bad for having a jack of clubs. The 4 of hearts that she has in her hands is stupid. It doesn't have any purpose. Yeah. But the jack of clubs is good because if it's somewhat, you know, if an 8 comes, if a queen comes,
it blocks the straight flush.
It blocks, but if a 8 or a queen or any club comes, now you have things working, right? If a club comes, you have a backdoor flush now. You have a flush draw. If an 8 or a queen comes, now you have an open-ended straight draw. So you have things. So when she calls, I have no problem with the call, right? Then the turn is a 3 of hearts, right? Now Garrett elects to, I think it was 11,000 in the pot now. But he elects to bet $10,000.
I do want to interject, and I apologize.
Shoot.
But at that point, what percentage? At that point, what equity does he have versus her
On the flop?
Let's say she did know he was on a flush draw.
Yeah.
Just an ace high flush draw.
Yeah.
What percentage did she have at that moment?
Against
off
an
the top of your head,
ace high flush draw? I don't know the answer to this, but if he has ace high and a flush draw, if he had let's say he has like ace high, let's say he has ace five of clubs.
Mm-hmm.
If he has ace five of clubs, she is drawing 2 outs, no, 3 outs, no, 2 outs for the 4, and then she's got 3 outs for the jack. She has approximately 20%. She has 5 outs. She has 20% equity.
She has 20%
to win the hand
ace
against ace 5 of clubs.
On the river
on the flop.
No. After, because we know she made that call when it was.
So if he has ace 5 of clubs on the turn, she has 10% equity to win the hand against ace 5 of clubs.
Let's say she believed he had no pairs.
Yeah.
He was going on a
if he has ace 5 of clubs versus jack 4 offsuit, he would have 90% equity to win the hand.
He would have 90%?
On a full
draw?
She doesn't have a pair.
On a full draw?
Yeah, because she has 5 outs. Because, think about it. So she has the jack of clubs.
He has
time out. So let's reason this out, right? So she has the jack of clubs and the 4 of hearts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the 4 of clubs is dead because if that comes, he hits a flush. If he has the ace 5 of clubs, so that's dead. So she only has 2 4s left, right? She has the 4 of diamonds and the 4 of spades, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2. She has the jack of clubs in her hand, so then she has 3 more jacks. So that's 5. 5 times 2 is 10. The standard conversion to figure out your odds is times 4 on the flop and times 2 on the turn. So she would have 10, I would say she would have anywhere from 8 to 12% equity. So he would be...
Even if he was unpaired...
Yeah, because he has the best hand right now. So she only has 5 outs. So that was my biggest issue with the hand is that, when you really think about it, right? When I told you earlier, you were fucking screaming at me about this.
Okay.
But
let's calm down.
Really the only hand that she beats is exactly what he has because if you think about it, let's take away the ace 5. Let's take this. Let's break it down like this, right? So she has jack 4 and he has 8 7 of clubs. Let's say now for this new example we just gave, he had ace 5 of clubs, right? Let's say he had queen 8 of clubs, which is another draw that he could have in that spot, right? Her odds to win that pot with that hand is even worse than the ace. Because it's even worse, dude. Or no, it's the same. Because he has 2 overs to her cards.
Look, to be clear, I don't know GTO as clear as he does. My thing is, she was able to predict what exact hand, and she was able to have enough confidence to continue on that gut feeling, whether gut or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Feel that he's on this hand, this is how he plays his hand, this is exactly how he would play his hand if he was a versus me with this hand.
Here's my point with it, and I'll finish on this because this is the only point that I really have to make, is that I agree with you on that, is that here's the issue, is I agree with you that if I'm in Robbie's head, right, I'm sitting there, if I have jack high, right, and I'm totally on the up and up, I'm thinking about, okay, what could he have here, right? And truthfully speaking, one of the hands that I would think about would be a 7 of clubs, right? That's one of them. The other hand that I beat that I'm thinking about is 6 5 of clubs, 5 7 of clubs, 8 6 of clubs, those lower flush draws. But on my mind, right, the thing that would keep me from calling is, number one, he could have a 10, right? And have trips on the flop. Number two, he could have a 9 for a pair. Number three, he could have any pocket pair. I mean, mind you, he did raise $3,000 before the flop, right? So he could have any pocket pair. And the other thing that he could have is he could have Jack 8, he could have Queen 8, he could have King Queen, King Jack, and he could have any ace high flush draw. So in my mind, when you look at GTO, right, or any, like when you're talking about combinations, like the amount of combinations of hands that you beat versus the combinations of hands that you do not beat, the amount, like she's calling 110 dimes on the river with a hand that beats, like she beats like 5 hands versus like fucking 50 hands that she doesn't beat. And so when you break that down, like, yeah, like it is possible that she made an absolutely soul crushing call. And truthfully, like there is nothing in the evidence book that takes that away from her. Like it is very possible that she made that call. And if she made that call, like truthfully, like we should all be just like bowing down to her for what she did.
At that moment.
At that moment,
At that
right?
moment, she was the best
right
player
at that
in the
moment,
world.
right? And
in the world.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, man, like if she would have been calling with ace high, like we would all be sitting here like, holy fuck, like oh my god, she made the craziest call, like that's what we would be doing, right? But because
the fact that we think that she was not able to make not only a king high call,
Raf, even if she would have called with
a queen high call, but a jack high call,
Raf, even if she would have
and
called
it was able to hit runner.
Raf, even if she would have called, because the other issue with this is that she had no real equity in the hand, right? Like if you really think about it,
I think when we saw it, she had like 20%.
Yeah, but that's not a lot of equity. But okay, like let's say for example, right?
She was winning in the case.
No, but let me give you an example. Okay, let's say that he jams all in, and she calls with Jack 8, right? Instead of Jack 4, Jack 8. She actually has a better straight draw than he does. Or she calls with Queen Jack. She has a draw,
and
but she has no draw.
Up about the way that ultimately GTO has put the poker community in. It's like if she hits this, then it wouldn't make sense.
No, and that's the other thing too.
In reality, it's just
argument.
that she's so like if you want to call it luck, whatever the fuck you want to call it, if you want to degrade her to just luck, it just so happened to fall in her favor.
No, I agree.
That's ultimately what happened, and that's why everybody's in such a fucking uprising.
Well, and there was a big uprising, and before, like, I mean, we've obviously talked about like the logistics of the hand, but I mean, coming from, I can tell you also.
Hold on, sorry to interject, but if I'm a religious person, let's say I'm a religious person, and whatever higher power I believe in,
and
I close my eye.
God telling you that you should.
And they tell me, fucking call.
I
call. No matter how egregious, how idiotic of a call it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
To me. I believe in that fucking.
And here's
and I call, and it just so happens to play in my favor.
No, I agree.
She ran it twice. She chose to run it twice. She could have ran it once.
Listen, I've had many times in my poker career where I've had people do insane things and it's worked out for them, and I think that's just the nature of the game.
It's poker.
And in this instance, like, it's fucking Adam Canopo, one of my good friends, former poker pro.
Great player, probably.
We all know him. But I've had instances with him, like, one of my first cash games that I've ever played in my life, I played at the South Point, and he stacked me. My friend invited me to this cash game, and he stacked me. And he stacked me with 10-3 offsuit in a pot, where he was like, fucking 8% chance to hit a straight on the river with 10-3. I had 2 pair, and he ended up hitting a straight on the river. But in reality, like, you look at it and it's like, okay, like, that's a terrible call on his part.
If that shit would have happened, he would have been on the button to ask,
Yeah.
Is he cheating?
Right. So I think one of the key things that we've talked about here is when you're talking about potential cheating, I think like the reason why I'm apprehensive to say one way or another is because in my mind, if somebody is or they're not, I want to have like actual proof of it.
Definitive
so
proof.
I like
Or
there's
else you
nothing
can't-
worse than telling somebody that, hey, you did something wrong, but without having like actual proof to back that up, because then it's like if you're wrong, then it's like it's really bad for that other person. And so for her, I really feel for her, because in the sense that if she is telling the truth, which it's very possible.
I personally believe she is.
It's possible, right? Like, I'm not telling you, I'm not willing to say, because I think there's a lot of people out there that believe that it's the other way, and there's people that believe the other way as well. I think off of what I've seen, it's really inconclusive. I think there's a lot of evidence pointing to that she didn't, and then there's a lot of evidence or a lot of theories pointing to that she did. And to me, it's very inconclusive. I think the only way that you're going to know for sure is if there's some sort of big evidence for proof. There's the guy, Brian, that was in the cage or in the production room. He stole money from her stack and he dipped, and nobody has been able to find him. I believe, I could be wrong, there's like some sort of like legal thing with him, and he's nowhere to be found. Like, people think that he's in like another state.
I personally believe that's a different case, but it could tie into it.
So it's one of those things, like, you're never gonna know. But I think one thing that came from this, though, that was important for the poker community is whether she was cheating or not. I mean, she kind of fell victim to this if she wasn't, but I think it started a good conversation within the poker industry, and I think it started good things. So, for example, with the Hustler Live Casino, they run the best stream in live streaming in the United States. I mean, they run the absolute best, and I give them major credibility. They have number one about. I don't know, it's maybe been 3, 4, 6 months now. They had the first $1 million buy-in cash game. Every single player. I mean, bottom line is, I feel like there's no way for us ever to know. I think, Raf has even convinced me a little bit more that it's more of like an innocent until proven guilty. There's no way for us to know. I think there's definitely some sketchy elements to the hand. And obviously with poker, and anytime there's a live stream specifically, realistically, anytime you have access to the motherfucking hole cards, it creates an element where there's cheating, right? It doesn't matter if I'm sitting here and I can see you lift up your hole cards and I see what you have, or there's a live stream where somebody on a computer screen can see what the players have in real time. It creates an element where there's cheating.
And I want to touch that. Let's say this was a non-live stream.
I don't think we're talking about it.
I show you the cards. You even may be like, why the fuck did you make that call?
Yeah, right.
You're still perplexed.
Correct.
Right? And it's not like, it's one of those instances where I think she went with her gut feeling. Her gut feeling was just so happened to be right. Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was. It is what it is.
I think if we're being honest with this hand, and I think this, this could go either way, like one side or the other. If we're playing this hand at a casino and it's just a regular table, no live stream, no nothing, if she did this, I don't know if there would be the outrage or even the publicity that there is the cheating. However, I think the key element to this is that it's live streams, so there's access to the hole cards. And this is the last point that I'm going to add, and then we can move on, is the biggest thing that I've seen from Hustler Live Casino is they have their hole cards in real time, right? And there's another, I'm not plugging anybody or anything like that, but Doug Polk and Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen, they all own the Lodge Card Club, right? It's in Austin. They all own it. They also have a live stream, very high stakes. And one thing that they do there is they're on a delay. Mm-hmm. Now Now, here's the thing, is with their production, and they'll admit this themselves, I've heard them talk about it, is you can tell sometimes that their production is not 100% like accurate, right? Like, or it's delayed, right? Like you might see the announcers say X, Y, and Z, and then the graphics come to the screen, and it's like a little bit botchy. But the one thing that you know is that they're on like a 15-minute delay, and so you know for a motherfucking fact, nobody in that building knows what you have except for you in real time. Mm-hmm. And so to me, the biggest mistake that places make is if you don't have your hole cards locked down, then it creates this potential. And whether you think she cheated or not, that's fine. But the reason why we're talking about this is because it was a live stream and because the hole cards were made available. Now, do I think she cheated? I don't know. And to be honest with you, I think you're on the side that she didn't, but you don't know for 100% fact either. But if the hole cards were not made available, hypothetically, if this hand were played on the lodge poker where they did not have the hole cards easily accessible, then I think we would have a lot more definitive answer, like, hey, I think she just made this crazy call. But where you can access the hole cards, it automatically. High Stakes Poker is a popular poker show that was very popular, still is. They brought it back a few years ago. That is where they edit, they do all the commentating and like post-production. They don't have access to the live hole cards. Mm-hmm. That's how poker used to be, but now live stream, YouTube, Twitch, RFID, that's a big thing, right? I mean, they used to have a camera in the seat to be able to view your hole cards, right? Mm-hmm. And that was different. But nowadays it's just different. They have different technology, which is great, but it's not foolproof. Like, you can be cheated, and it's impossible to rule that out, right? Do I think she cheated? It's inconclusive. I'm not going to say that she did or she didn't. If you made me say right now off of all of the information, I would say probably not. But it's hard to say. It is hard to say. It's been very divisive for like the last year. I know Garrett Adelstein hasn't played much in the last year. I do know character-wise for him, in the poker world, he has a very high character. People regard him very highly in that industry. Her, not so much, but she's also extremely new, and people didn't have negative views of her prior to him. Right, and people didn't have bad views of her because she's new, right? I mean, when somebody's new at a job or new anywhere, like, you don't have bad or good things to say, right? So I don't know anything about her, right? So I don't have anything to say like, yeah, she was a piece of shit before this and now she's here. I can't say that. And I also can't say, yeah, she's, sunshine and rainbows, right? I can't say that either, so it's hard to say. But him, I have a lot of respect for him as a player and his career. So I don't think he would be throwing out allegations totally in the dark. But it's also kind of negligent and dangerous to say that somebody did something that you don't have evidence of. And that's kind of where I'll leave it.
I think that's fair. And I think, honestly, from the proof that I've seen, ultimately I've seen, I don't think there's anything mischievous going on. Now, granted, I may think opposite of Nick in the scheme of how poker is played. I think the complete opposite, and I think that's kind of my strength in a way. But I personally haven't seen any fault. I think it was just
that's fair.
The right play at the right time, right?
That's fair, and that's very possible. I mean, it is possible that she made just the incredible read.
She read him like a book, and and I think she was more in tune with the psychological side versus the analytic side, which is, in this case, GTO, right? Where you look at, that doesn't make sense. Why would you risk your entire stack? And she may have been staked in a way, right? She might have sold some of her play. So she may have not cared as much as he did, where he put in every single last penny.
Very true.
Right? Those are things that I personally haven't seen. I haven't gone into. But yeah, to selfishly plug him in, how am I doing in your book?
What book?
If we don't know,
what book?
Mr. Nick Addesso here has been writing a book, which he has been sharing very little by little, and I've been gaining more and more interest in, which is by fault, by him, through him. But yeah, how he told me I was in the book maybe a little bit, maybe
well,
I don't know. It's ultimately up to editing.
So to be fair, I've been kind of alluding very lightly to that I'm writing a book. I haven't, any family that's watching this, I haven't told anybody that I'm writing this. So to be fair, I mean, I'm, well into the hundreds of pages written of this book, and I've kept it somewhat private. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that you don't want to have too many hands in the pot. I mean, you obviously want some people to give you some feedback. You want people to read it and see kind of where you're at. But you don't want, I think one thing that I've taken in my life, and it's not just like book or poker related, is that like sometimes when you have aspirations, like the last thing that you need is somebody to kind of like put you down, right? Mm-hmm. Like you kind of need positive reinforcement, even if there's criticism involved in it, right? Mm-hmm. So I've kind of tried to keep it, but yes, I am writing a book. It is not a poker strategy book, just so everybody knows. That may be something that I do down the line, but this book is a fictional novel about a poker player's life. It is about the ups and downs that Maya, yeah. It's about the life of a poker player that has ups and downs throughout his life. He has adversity that he faces with support of family. He does not have a lot of support from his family. He has a good support system throughout his friends. He finds the game of poker randomly, and he pursues it as a passion that is very against the grain. I mean, when you think about like people that go towards certain goals, like poker ain't one of them. Like it's just not. I mean, these out the box things, like people that make big strides in life, they go after businesses, they go after things like poker. They do these like out of the box ideas, not the traditional like 9-to-5 jobs, and that's kind of what this character went after. And when it boils down to it, a big part of it is a coming of age book. It's a 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid that finds poker, wants to pursue it, but a lot of it is a love story. And I think that that's one thing that'll surprise a lot of people. Is it's about a story about a kid that finds somebody that he loves so dearly in the midst of finding something that he's so passionate about, and like finding out how to balance that and also how to capitalize on both of them. And it's an interesting story. Now, as far as your character is interesting. Your character is based off of real life.
I'm the trash player.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true. So the main character's name is Joey Delfino, and he is loosely based off of my life. To put it bluntly, I mean he's loosely based off of my life, my experiences. He's based off of other experiences, and totally just made up shit. But he's loosely based off of my life, and I've named characters and I've involved friends of mine in the book because they've played significant roles in my poker career. And Raf played an interesting role in Nick's poker career, real life, because when I learned to play poker, I honestly did not know what I was doing. I mean, I saw poker from, I learned playing poker from my grandpa in this sounds really bad, but we were in a trailer at NASCAR in Las Vegas. My grandpa and I used to go. He's no longer with us, but one of my fond memories with him was we would go to NASCAR together because there was nothing else really that we could just do, the two of us in Vegas, that we both would have fun. And I don't watch NASCAR on TV, but there's kind of something to be said about going and seeing it in person, like hearing the cars, all that kind of thing. And my grandpa had an RV, and so we would stay on property at the Las Vegas track.
The Speedway.
Speedway, yeah. And we were in the trailer playing, and randomly he just pulled out some like pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters and all that shit. And he taught me 5-card draw poker. And I remember thinking, you know, when I was like 9 or 10 years old, that this was a fun game. Like, and I had no buy-in. It was his nickels and quarters, and if I won, I got to keep it, and it was a pretty cool deal. And that was really my only poker introduction until I became an adult. And randomly during COVID, me and some coworkers that were on furlough, we decided to play poker online, and just to kind of connect because we hadn't seen each other. And I got my fucking ass kicked. And it kind of sparked the interest in it. And then randomly, you know, we didn't really mention this, but how Raf and I met was my wife and his girlfriend are sisters, and we met that way. And so we had this family game where we would just play poker for no money. We would just play for fun. And he was always kind of the antagonist in the game. Like, he was the bully. He was the guy that was always taking down the pots. He was the 9-deuce bluffer, and you would fold and then find out that he had nothing, and you're like, how the fuck could he do that? And it kind of like sparked a drive in me because I was like, dude, I'm tired of going to this house. Like, you know, I was going to my mother-in-law's house and getting my ass handed to me. Like, it just wasn't fun, right? And so I randomly, and I shit you not, I remember the exact scenario, is I went on YouTube and I just typed in poker live on YouTube on our TV. And this final table of, I think it was the 2019 Poker Stars final table for like their Caribbean thing. And this dude like went all in with pocket threes against like ace king, and an ace came on the flop, and by the river a 3 came on the river, and they hit a set. And this dude ended up busting in like 3rd place, but he took like, I don't know, a couple $100,000 at least for 3rd place. And I remember thinking, I was like, holy fuck, this is real money. Like, I've been playing this game for fake money with my in-laws. And I've been letting this dude, like, just fucking manhandle me for no money. And these guys are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And at the time, it was during COVID, and people were making no money. I mean, I didn't have a job during COVID. And I was like, dude, like, this is crazy. So the next thing I did was actually funny enough, it's right here, is I bought this book. This was the first poker book I ever bought. It's Power Hold'em by Daniel Negreanu. And I read this book because I saw, after watching that video, I watched several other videos, and I found out, not knowing anything about poker or the world, I quickly learned that Daniel Negreanu was one of the top players. I searched, and at the time, he isn't now, I don't believe, but at the time, he was number 1 on the all-time money list. And I think at the time, he had like $40 million in career earnings and just some outlandish shit like that. And I looked at him, and you watch him play back then, and he had all kinds of charisma. I mean, it's insane watching this dude play. I mean, just like mind reader, his personality, like, he just had that vibe, and I was like, dude, I want to fucking be that guy. And so that was when I decided, you know what, I need to go into the lab and, you know, learn this game. And, you know, I learned the game, and, you know, eventually, you know, when you and I would play, the situations became less and less scary. I felt like I could navigate them a little bit better. I understood the math a little bit more. I understood the hand rankings a little bit more. And that's kind of what happened. And so, you know, that's a long-winded response, but then when you go into the book, right, I'm not going to give too much away, but Raf is a character where Joey gets into a newer game and has a player that is a good player and might even be better than Joey at the time, but just has this crazy sense of aggression. And Joey does not know how to deal with it, and Joey loses. Maybe not even because he's better, just because he's more aggressive. And Joey has to figure out, like, okay, like, how do I play against a player like this? And that's a lot of what poker is, and to be honest with you, life. Like, you have this strong person or strong thing in your life, and you have to figure out, like, okay, like, how do I go and how do I learn how to deal with this? And so Joey learns how to deal with it, and he eventually tries to learn how to beat that. And that's where your character comes in. And actually, you know, for me, in real life and him, it was a pivotal moment in their poker early upbringing, because it showed them that, for one, once I started to see success against you, it realized to me that, hey, I can make this happen. Because to me, the scariest thing, you know, on a Thursday night was to go and play for no money against you on a poker table. But then once you figured out, like, okay, there's things that I can do, there's, you know, tricks that I can play. Like, I remember there was one hand where, you know, I had, you know, fucking bottom pair or something, and you bet like full pot on a flop, and I just raised you, and you folded. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, ooh, like, that worked. Like, oh, that's crazy. Like, what was that? Like, oh, he folded? Like, that worked? Like, what? I didn't have to see any more cards. Like, and it's just simple shit like that, where it's like, you see like an opportunity, you take it, it works, and then you just go for it. And I think that's kind of what I learned.
And I mean, I remember when you first started.
I was awful. I was bad.
I remember when the ace would come, I would just take full advantage of that ace coming out and bet aggressively against the ace, and everybody would fold. And I think it's just been an honor to see you grow as much as you have. I think, obviously playing with you, you absolutely would just fold to any ace that just came on the board. Yeah. And now, ultimately, understanding the game better than I could ever understand it has been just a pure privilege. But I mean, I just hope that everybody that, you know, that supports you, buys the book, understands the book, and understands where it came from, just goes out and buys it.
I hope so. Because thank you.
You know, from what I have read, it's been a great, entertaining book. I mean, I've just been wanting more and more.
Thank
quite
you.
honest with you.
I appreciate that.
Whether I'm in it or not, obviously I'm biased.
So you can't. So don't give any details. But I sent you a chapter last night. What did you think of it?
So I haven't finished the chapter. I'll be completely honest with you. It was a pretty long chapter.
Yeah, it was long. This is the longest chapter for sure.
From what I read, it was a lot more. It did tell more of the poker end on it, right? Okay. So I did get more of that. It did touch into, you know, Maya and that aspect of it, and it truly was, and like, it did grab you. Good. It did want you to learn more and more about it, from what I read, and I'll be completely honest with you. Everyone that I have shared it with has been enticed by it. Really? Has been intrigued by it. That's awesome. And it's like, well, what happens next? So that's awesome. I mean, I think that's a good thing to have in a book, and ultimately, I'm truly biased, but I think you'll be a great writer. I think whoever buys it, whoever does support Nick, will truly see the talent that he has with writing the book. Thank you. And I think it's a true story of who you are, who you've grown to be, and it also grows into the entertainment aspect of it. I appreciate that, man. That means the world to me. I think for me, man, it's one of those things, like, I didn't plan on writing this book. Yeah. Like, you know what's funny is I actually, on my desktop, I have other books that I've attempted to write over the years, and they were always strategy books. And actually, you know, over there, I have an entire notebook, almost an entire college rule notebook, full of a strategy book. And, you know, one day I might publish that, one day I might write it. But when I was writing it, it did not feel right. And randomly, I don't know what came over me, but I was sitting at my desk, and I had, like, how I started writing it, and people are going to think I'm nuts, but
I randomly started to think of some concepts and ideas about a character and about like just random like poker player's life. And I just started writing notes, like bullet points, literally. And I could show you bullet points about like, you know, if a poker player were, you know, and this book takes place in the 90s, like if a poker player were to play in this time period, like what would happen? And if this age group, like would they have issues with their mom, and would they have issues with their you know, relationships, would they have issues with this? And I just listed like a couple of pages worth of bullet points of like how this story could go. And then randomly I just fucking started writing, and I just couldn't stop. And it's been, you know, at first, you know, I couldn't stop for a while, and then, you know, obviously life gets in the way, and then I got back to it. And it's just like one of those things where it's just like the initial fire was started from you know, just writing bullet points about potential ideas to the story or to the character, but it wasn't necessarily like me just deciding, hey, I'm gonna write this book, if that makes sense. And then slowly, like, you start writing the book, and then you start to see, like, initially it started off as a totally fictional character, and then as I'm writing this, I'm like, dude, like, why is my mind subconsciously writing about me? And so I'm writing this story, and like Joey Delfino is the main character's name. Joey Delfino was supposed to be a totally fictional character. And as I'm writing this, I'm reading it, and I'm like, I go back and I read it, and I'm like editing, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like this sounds a lot like me. Like, why is this so much like me? And then I started to think about it. I'm like, why am I fighting this? Like, why not kind of, you know, base this off of some realities of me, and then, you know, include fiction, right? Like, this is my kind of life's work, if you will have it. Like, why not include me? And that's kind of what I tried to do, man.
And I think that's ultimately what defines a great writer, is the ability to create a fictional character, but also tie them into reality.
Yeah.
And make people relate to it. And ultimately, I hope that everybody that support you does buy the book.
I appreciate that.
Because from what I have read, it really is just phenomenal writing and
phenomenal
creation.
I'll tell you one thing. There's 3 or 4 people on the face of the earth that have actually read any pages of my book, and you're one of them. So I hope that means something to you. But that I've even read a word of it. Or even, actually, you're one of, like, very few that even know that I'm doing it. So, well, Raf, I appreciate you coming for this podcast. You are episode number 1.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, and we will be having more episodes. Please stay tuned, and we'll be, you know, posting content on Nick Addesso Poker Instagram, and, you know, obviously some YouTube stuff with this podcast, but also stay tuned for Raf. I mean, you're going to have a great career in the IT field. You have a lot of promise within that, so, you know, support Raf in anything that you're doing. I don't think you're doing any, like, YouTube stuff, but if you do, let's support. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And we've had some booze, so we're good. All right.